Vishwa, it's an online platform for social champions, for change makers, everyday change makers that we see around us, who have put decades of work, of their lifetime, their earnings, into making a difference, to serve others, and to make our world a better place.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Vishwa Talks. My name is Trishan, and I thank you all for attending today's event. For those of you who have attended a Vishwa Talk before, a warm welcome back. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, here's a little bit about us. Vishwa Talks is a space to expand the horizons of your mind. Every webinar, we call experts from different domains to discuss and examine opinions, issues, problems, and perspectives. Each webinar is an interactive session where we all walk away with more respect for each other and a deeper understanding of the topic at hand. If you miss a session, please visit our website or YouTube channel for a full library of past Vishwa Talks on interesting topics. Today on Vishwa Talks, on World Cancer Day, we will be discussing on the cause health and family welfare. Our speaker for today is Dr. Praveen Clement, and he will lead us through the session in just a few moments. Dr. Praveen Clement is the transplant coordinator with the Marrow Donor Registry India, specialization in the field of transfusion medicine, postgraduate in family medicine from CMC Vellore, and an MBA in healthcare management. He was the ex-blood bank officer at Tata Memorial Hospital for several years. Before we get started, I would like to inform our audience that our speaker will be taking questions from you after our main talk. So please leave your questions in the chat or raise a hand, and we will allow you to ask your question in person. I request everyone to turn on your webcam for the interaction part of the session. Now, without further ado, I invite our speaker to begin today's Vishwa Talk. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Praveen Clement. I'm very happy to be here in front of you through this new portal, Zoom call, which we call it. And happy to see so many people logging in to hear this new topic called stem cell donation and how it can help so many people around the world. And my introduction is already done, so I don't have to do that. Just to give you a brief about what I'm going to talk today for the next 2 minutes. The thing is, stem cell donation is something very new. Most of y'all might have not heard about it, or you might have heard about it, but you don't know what it is exactly. So I'm here to enlighten you about this whole topic, and feel free to ask questions at the end of the session. I'll be happy to answer it if it is in my purview. And I'm happy to be here, and we can start the session. As you all know, I'm the transplant coordinator with the Marrow Donor Registry India, which is an organization funded by the Tata Trust. And we help cancer patients, basically. So mostly blood cancer patients, patients with genetic blood disorders, and other rare blood disorders, where there is no hope of a permanent cure with the regular medication. And the only hope of cure for such patients is a stem cell transplant. And stem cell transplant is something which cannot take place on a random basis. You have to be a registered donor to be a stem cell donor. And stem cell transplantation can take place only from donors. There is no other way. And so there is an organization called Marrow Donor Registry India, where I'm the transplant coordinator, where we register voluntary donors. And these donors are pledging themselves in the hope that if they are a perfect match with a cancer patient, they can help these patients by donating something called stem cells. And stem cells are these magical cells which are present in every one of us. And all of us can offer a hope for such patients, especially with blood cancer. And of course, all of you all might have heard of thalassemia, which is a very common disease in our country. And there is no permanent cure for thalassemia. The only way for such patients is, they can live normally is with the blood transfusion every few days. But if we do a stem cell transplant on these patients, it's a permanent cure for them. So I'll talk about the organization simultaneously so that you'll get a better picture of how you can register yourself as a stem cell donor, and how a stem cell donation works on cancer patients, and how it can offer a permanent cure for even an end-stage blood cancer patient. So we can start the slideshow. It will be shared soon. Yeah. So I'd like to thank Vishwa Talks for having me over here, first of all. This is a good opportunity for me to talk about stem cell donation, because this is something nobody has heard of. And this is the only portal where I can reach out to people and tell them about stem cell donation and how they can, help us in many other ways to offer hope for such cancer patients. So let's go to the first slide. Yeah, so talking about the organization, see, always when we talk about stem cell donation, there might be many people around the world who would like to donate their stem cells, but they don't know where to go about. And the thing is, a stem cell donation can take place only with that patient and you, if you're a perfect DNA match. You must have heard about DNA, and it is very unique for every one of us. All of us have a very unique DNA, and we feel that it never matches with anyone. It's not completely true. There is a tendency that you will match on a random basis with someone, but very, very rare. So this registry helps in finding that rare match. So Marrow Donor Registry was formed in 2009 with the hope, that we can help such kind of cancer patients. Of course, we have to start somewhere, and it started as an initiative from the Tata Memorial Hospital. the cancer hospital in Parel, where I was working as a blood bank officer in 2009. And we started registering voluntary donors who would like to pledge their, stem cells for such cancer patients. They can be called if they are found as a match. So we started in 2009. We started under the Tata banner, and the Tatas were very kind to help us out with the funding project, because this project needs a lot of funding, and they were very kind to help us. And the project started with a bang. Yeah, next slide. So as I said, the problem statement. Everybody, many of us would like to donate, but we don't know where to find the patient, or the patient will not be able to find us because we are very rare match. So we have a repository and we started registering donors. So there are many cancer patients around the world diagnosed with leukemia, thalassemia, genetic blood disorders, where the only hope for them is a stem cell donation, okay, from a donor like you. And as you know, the recent statistics says that 1 lakh cancer patient diagnosed every year only in India. And the best possible cure for them is a stem cell transplant from a donor like you. So the stem cell donation should come from a person or a donor who's a complete DNA match. Okay, so we try to match, of course, with the sibling. There is always a tendency that we will match our sibling. Okay, your own brother or sister. Okay, not your cousins or a distant relative or someone. That also, there is only a 25% chance that you will match with your own sibling. There is a 75% chance that you will not match with your sibling. So then again, the only hope for such patients is to look forward to a registry where there are already donors who are waiting for the call to come forward and donate for such patients. And the matching probability, as I said, is very, very rare. It's almost 1 in 20,000 to 1 in 50,000. So that becomes very, very rare. Okay. And till 2009, there was no registry at all. We were very late to form a registry. Our country was lagging behind. There are many countries around the world who have huge registries. They started in the 1970s and 80s. And they have more than many lakhs. The US has more than 2 crore donors with them. And we started registering donors. Next slide, please. Yeah, so how to solve this problem? The only solution is to have a huge registry with a repository of many donors who are already, registered with us. Their DNA is tested and ready to be matched with patients, whoever come looking for a match. As I said, the sibling is the first hope, but nowadays, many families follow the single child norm. So if the child is diagnosed with a, threatening blood disorder, then the only hope for them is to directly approach a registry and go forward. As I said, the possibility is 1 in 20,000, but it's not impossible. So people who are willing to donate should enroll themselves into a registry and wait for the call. So we have a centralized registry, and they will have to be registered with us so that the patients can approach us through the doctor. Okay, the treating doctor can approach us, and all this is free of cost. Okay, we have an email, we have a phone call. Within a day, we respond to them saying that there is a donor or match found, and we can take it forward from there. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as a registry, what is our role? MDRA took the responsibility of registering voluntary donors to save such lives. So how do we enroll themselves? We just cannot call one donor and tell them to register themselves. We'll have to give them an awareness session, like, how, like I'm talking today, we'll have to give them this talk and let them know that, you are going to enroll yourselves now, but you might be called later when you are found as a matching donor with a certain patient. And that time he should come forward to donate also. And this can take place anywhere from today for the next 40 years. Whenever they are found as a match, they'll be called. And it won't be an emergency call, of course. They'll be informed that they've been found as a match, and they'll be given some time to decide if they want to go ahead, because this is a totally voluntary act. Okay, the donor's choice is the final choice, that if they want to donate or not. So how does the donor register themselves? So they fill up an enrollment form with their contact details, keeping in mind that, the next 30-40 years, this is the only detail we have to register themselves and to reach out to them. And to do their DNA test, of course, because that is what we need to see if they match with the patient. So we used to take blood samples before. Now we take saliva sample. Okay, as technology gets advanced, we can take a saliva sample and do the DNA test of the donor. It's a simple 1-minute procedure where the donor has to just do a swabbing and send us the swab kit. And We do the test and he is already registered with us. The donor will be acknowledged with the donor card, which is a globally recognized donor card, so that they don't register in every registry around the world if they move on. So it's called an HLA test, the human leukocyte antigen test, because that is a specific test which is required to see if the donor matches with the patient. So the HLA report is uploaded on our database, and the donor is kept anonymous. They are anonymized, only known by numerical data. No donor is known to even our staff. Okay, so that there is no bias of selection of donors. So these donors are regularly checked to see if they match with any patients, because we receive many patients looking for matches. We have registered with all the hospitals, not only in India, but around the world. And we receive about 10 patients every day looking for a matching donor, 10 new patients. Okay, so that is the statistics of the number of patients around the world. Next slide, please. Yeah, one more tap. Yeah, so how does the enrollment take place? So the initial counseling session will take place on a day prior to the camp, where the donors are given the full information on how they can register themselves as a stem cell donor. And I go class to class in a college or floor to floor in an office and talk to them and give them all the information. Then we have a question answer session where they can, answer all the questions and all the myths, facts they would like to be revealed. And they will be more comfortable to go back home, read about it, Google it, and then come back the next day only if they are interested to be a registered voluntary donor. So they'll fill up a consent form, they'll give their full contact details, and the saliva sample will be given. And finally, if you can see that last image, it's the donor card that will be shared with them by post. Next slide, please. Yeah, so to register as a donor, what is the requirement? Both genders are equally welcome. They always feel that, male, female, and all that. There is nothing like that. All are absolutely welcome. You should be between the age of 18 to 50 years, and your weight should be around 50 kg or more. Okay, because we cannot register donors below the weight of 50 also, because there is a certain amount of blood volume in our body depending on our weight. So that will decide how much stem cells you would have on the day of your donation also. So we would prefer the donors to be above 50 kg. And of course, you should be in good health with no major diseases, of course, heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease, or cancer itself. So otherwise, all are welcome. You might be on medication for something, but that is not a deferral criteria. That you might be on medication for blood pressure, diabetes, and maybe you might be having medication for migraine or some other kidney stone or something like that. These are all minor factors which should not keep you away from registering as a donor. And of course, you should have the willingness to come forward the day you are found as a match, because it is always seen that when we do massive camps in colleges, the whole college is very enthusiastic about it and everybody wants to register. But they might have second thoughts the day they are found as a match, maybe when we call them 10 years later. So the commitment should be always your top priority whenever you are called. Of course, the donor doesn't have to pay anything. It is done absolutely free of cost. All expenses for the testing are borne by us, and which is funded by the donation from corporates and individuals. Sadly, we don't have a government support yet. So the Tatas are taking care of the whole project. So there shouldn't be any problem for the donor also. Next slide, please. Yeah, so coming to, when a match is found, say you're already a registered donor with us, you've received a donor card, and it's been almost 5 years that you never got a call. Suddenly, one fine day, you might get a call from us saying that, you've been found as a match with someone, and would you still like to go ahead with it? Because we will not let you, come forward and donate immediately. We will always take a consent again, because since it has been a few years back that you had registered with us, we would like to know your health status also. There might have been some changes in your location or your health status. So we would always take a consent again to see if you're still willing to donate. And you have to pass something called a fitness for donation also. And we'll confirm that you are that same donor who's been found as a match. We'll take another sample, we'll send it to US, get a confirmatory testing also. So the donor donates his stem cells in a simple outdoor procedure. Okay, the donation is a very simple process. It's a needle procedure. I'll explain all that in some time. There is always a fear that stem cell donation, bone marrow donation, painful procedure. I know I want to help a certain patient, but it's always that will I undergo any change in my health condition? Would I have any side effects to the procedure? Will I have any permanent residual disorder in me after the donation process? So there is nothing like that. You are going to donate something as simple as a blood donation and nothing more. Whatever you donate will be replenished soon in your body. So the donor will be, so if he's selected as a donor, he'll undergo a health checkup. He'll have to pass something called a fitness for donation. And it will be a blood test with an ECG, an X-ray chest, and an ultrasonography abdomen. And we'll certify him fit if all the reports are normal. If at all there is any change in his health status, we would tell him that you might not be able to donate. Or if it's a temporary factor, we can delay the transplant. We can take care of his health status first and then take the donation from the donor. So the simple process is that, as I said, stem cells is something very new. To come to the main part, what are stem cells? Stem cell is just blood. Okay, it is the immature blood which is encased inside your bone marrow. Bone marrow means the hollow part of your bones where your blood is being formed every day. Some of you all might not know that. Okay, the immature blood which is formed inside the bone marrow will slowly overflow into your blood every day. As our cells get destroyed every day, used up, new cells are being formed by our bone marrow, and that's how our blood is always active and getting regenerated again and again. So these cells which is inside the bone marrow, that is what is the patient requires. So previously, about 30 years ago, it used to be, this procedure was called bone marrow transplant. And actual procedure was, we had to go into the bone with a huge needle and remove that bone marrow and give it to the patient. Of course, due to advanced technology and all, that procedure is not done anymore. It is as simple as a blood donation now. You will be donating your stem cells as simple as a blood donation. That's why we changed the name as from bone marrow to stem cell donation. Okay, we don't use the term bone marrow also, because we don't want to scare the donors actually. So it's a simple process. We call it stem cell donation. So how does it work when the stem cells are inside the bone marrow? How does it come outside into the blood? So there is this special wonder drug called growth factor, an injection which is given under the skin, a very painless one, a tiny injection. I will be coming personally and give it to the donor on his tummy 5 days before the procedure, one on each day. So what happens is, it's a stimulant basically. It will stimulate your bone marrow. It will signal your bone marrow to produce a few more cells, and the cells will increase in your bone marrow. And there will be a point where it has saturated and it will come into your bloodstream. You will not know anything. Okay, slowly I'll come every day, check you, and I'll see that the number of cells are rising in your blood. So by the 5th day, the required cells are into your blood. So there is about a 20% rise in the stem cells in your actual peripheral blood. That is the day you will have to come to our blood bank and donate your stem cells. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the donor who is actually donating his stem cells. As you can see, he's comfortably lying down. He's smiling also, and obviously he's not in any pain. So 5 days before the injections have been given, and the collection takes place on a machine on which a kit has been installed. And the kit has 2 needles. One needle goes in each arm. So the blood will come out of one arm, it will go into the kit, it will separate out the stem cells, and the remaining blood will be returned back to you. So there won't be any blood loss to the donor also. So at the end of the process, only 200 ml of blood is collected, which is rich in stem cells. It looks like blood only. Okay, if you all have been through a blood donation, you see a blood bag. It's a red color tiny bag. Blood donation is 350 to 450 ml. This is only 200 ml. That is enough for the patient. So donor is at absolute comfort. The only thing is that the collection takes place very slowly so that the donor is absolutely comfortable. So what he'll have to do is, he'll have to just lie down and watch TV, nothing more. Okay, and at the end, just 200 ml of blood is collected. And after that, the donor is relieved. He can go back home immediately after our observation period. Next slide, please. Yeah, so how does the stem cell work? I have collected 200 ml from the donor, but how does it help the patient? So the patient is usually, mostly a blood cancer patient, rarely a genetic blood disorder patient like a thalassemia patient, and some other rare blood disorders like aplastic anemia or multiple myeloma or some other disorder where the cells are going to help them. But what is happening is the patient is having blood cancer. So his bone marrow is faulty. Okay. So all the cells which are being formed in his body is coming from his bad bone marrow. So our first point is to destroy the patient's bone marrow completely with our medicines. So we'll take care of that. We'll give him a high dose chemotherapy and destroy his bone marrow completely. So we'll bring it down to zero. So what happens is these cells are also taking care of your immunity. So what happens is for the patient's immunity is also falling. So we keep it in a special bone marrow unit where, it's a very sterile atmosphere where the patient will not get exposed to anything for a few weeks. And the cells which are collected from the donor will be infused into the patient. Okay. So what happens is the cells are given to the patient just like a IV drip, and it will be taken up by the patient's body. Now that the patient is a perfect match with the donor, there will be no rejection. Okay, it will accept as its own because the DNA pattern is the same between the patient and the donor. So the acceptance is very high. And what happens is the cells they have these sensors in them. They'll go and sense that, this whole body is deficient of bone marrow. So they'll start homing these cells into the bone marrow. They'll locate themselves. They'll sit there like a seed and they'll start forming new cells from there. So this 200 ml, which has gone into the patient's body, will act like a seed to start growing new cells. But what has happened is the donor cells are all normal. From now on, it will start forming all normal cells in the patient's body for the rest of his life, actually curing his cancer completely. So this is what is called, bone marrow transplant. Okay, in simple terms, remove the bad bone marrow and replace with a good marrow from the patient, and it will go and sit in the bone marrow forming areas of the patient's body and form new cells. Something interesting you would like to know over here is we don't need a blood group matching in this transplant. The patient and the donor need not match their blood group. So what happens is when we destroy the patient's immunity and the marrow, the patient's blood group is also nullified. The patient will start having the blood group of the donor. So A group patient has been transfused with an O group donor cells will become O group after a month. Okay, so you might find it interesting actually. So that is what is a bone marrow transplant. And within a month, all the cells are replaced with these new cells of the donor. And the patient is having absolutely new cells in his body, absolutely new blood, which is deficient of blood cancer. Okay, so he's having normal blood. So the cancer is eliminated from the patient's body. Next slide, please. Yeah, so for the donor, absolutely a job well done. So what he did was priceless. A one-time donation of just 200 ml of blood has cured someone's cancer. But the donor had just had to walk into a blood bank, donate 200 ml, and he left the blood bank. We have transplanted and the patient is permanently cured. So you have extended the patient's life, mostly a small child, by many years, because 80% of our patients are children with blood cancer. And sadly, by the time the parents and the doctors reach out to us, it comes to the last stage of the cancer. But it is fortunate that a stem cell transplant can be done and even in the last stages, and we can offer a complete cure for them. So for the donor, he has not lost anything from his body. He has just donated blood, and it will be replenished in no time. As you know, that injection has increased your stem cells by 20%. So on the day of donation also, we'll collect only that extra 20%. So even when you leave the blood bank, you are still 100%. So there is no loss to the donor at all. So of course, there is nothing, no gifts given to the donor as such, because he is doing something priceless. We cannot put a price tag on what he has donated. But of course, he can always live with the euphoria that he has saved the life of a cancer patient with no one else can. Okay, because he's the only match for the donor and there was no one else. Usually, being a small registry, we don't find any matches, first of all, with most of the patients. Fortunately, if we find a match, we might find only one match for a patient. So that donor is the only hope for that patient. So they can really, feel proud about it that, he was probably the only one in the world who has cured that cancer. So as I said, yeah, next slide. Yeah, of course, always when you register, we hope that you register with a commitment saying that, you are registered with us. It was a simple saliva sample and nothing more. And you might have forgotten after 10 years also that you're registered with us. Doesn't matter. We'll always give you a counseling whenever you're found as a match. But of course, we would like you to step forward the day you get a call, because it is very important that you come forward. As I said, registry is very small. There are no two donors for one patient. There is only one donor always. So finding a matching donor itself is very difficult. And even if that one donor backs out, because it is his choice. So if it backs out, it will be very sad for the patient, the relatives, the doctors. Many people are working on this one case, always. So we'll be happy to know that the donor is committed. So the emphasis is that register with a long-term commitment. Next slide, please. Yeah, so our registry is 50,000 donors, strong or weak, I don't know, in the last 12 years. Compared to other registries, we are a very, very small registry. But nevertheless, the matching probability compared to other registries has been very, very high. We have done 18 transplants in our 50,000 donors. So that means that there were 18 patients who were definitely going to die, who were found as a match with a donor, and their cancer is completely cured. And they are all doing very well. The transplants have been done in the last 10 years, and the success rates are very, very high. So, as I said, we get about 10 patients every day looking for a matching donor, but finding a match is very, very difficult. And I see that the donors who come forward when they are found as a match are very, very willing to come forward when they know that, they've been found as a match with an end-stage cancer patient, and they have very few days to live. And they are all very committed. In fact, we take time to reach out to them. The donors start calling us that, hey, what is the next step? What is the next step? So we're happy to know that. And we were very fortunate to, help two international patients also. Because, this is a point to be noted, because our DNA is such that, it's kind of race specific. We will match with someone from our country only. Okay, it is very rare that we'll find a match in an outside country, because our race is different. We are Aryans, Dravidians and all. American patients, Caucasians, Mongolians and all, we don't match with them. Although all registries are globally connected, we are very friendly. We are willing to help each other free of cost, but we don't match with each other. So that's the sad part of this. So every country should have its own registry with their own ethnic donors registered with them. Still, we found 2 donors for international patients. So, and it is our responsibility, if the patient is far, that the donor need not travel. The donor will donate at his location, and it is our responsibility to take the product and reach it out to the patient. So we have special privilege and connections with all the authorities from the government, who have given us full support to transport the product free of cost and within 24 hours, because these are life-saving cells, something like a green corridor. So, and donors, as I said, they are so committed that we were in the middle of the pandemic, and at that time we found a match. One donor came forward in June 2020, where it was still the lockdown, and donated his stem cells in a hospital scenario, which was a COVID hospital actually. The donation took place, and the patient has been benefited. It wouldn't have happened. The patient wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for this donor who stepped out in the pandemic. Next slide, please. So as the registry, we have some regulations to follow. You should be associated with the World Marrow Donor Association. It's a governing agency which controls all the registries around the world, so that they govern us, they inspect, they do audits to see if we are functioning in the proper protocol. And we have a registered number, ION 4131, and it's called WMDA, World Marrow Donor Association. And the donors on the MDRI database are enlisted anonymously in the international database also, so that, if the patient is looking for a transplant and it's an urgent basis, the doctor can directly look up on the WMDA and look for a match, where he is exposed to all the donors around the world. Hopefully he'll find a match somewhere. So it is also associated with DKMS, which is a German registry, which has a very high number of donors with them, and who are willing to help us out of it. And the special privilege from German registry is that, Indians and Germans, we come from the same race, Aryan race. So our DNA is specific that, kind of similar. So we tend to match more among the German population rather than the American population. So we associated with them also. Next slide, please. Yeah, so our first matching donor, we started registering from 2009, but our first match was in 2014. And when we had only 14,000 donors registered with us, although the probability is 1 in 20,000, we were very lucky. Within 14,000 donors, we found our first match. Our first donor was just a 19-year-old girl pursuing college who was very busy in her exams and all that. But nevertheless, she always was very willing, and she came forward and donated the stem cells, and the patient received it within 24 hours. The patient is doing great. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we have a good support from everyone around the country. Like, the product might be collected in Mumbai. The patient might be in Chandigarh, and it has to be flown by air. And the property of these stem cells is that it cannot be screened on an X-ray, which is very mandatory in all the airports. This is one challenge for us, that we have to convince the security that you cannot screen this box. And of course, we have special clearance. We have a special card saying that I am a bone marrow courier, and they give us priority of screening the courier, but not the box. And the airport, the police, the government agencies, the airlines, and the transplant doctors all have been very cooperative in getting the product across within actually 16 hours. So that's how it works. And of course, the donor's family and the donor himself have been very kind to come forward and donate for the patients. Next slide, please. So how does the events take place for the MDRI to organize registration of donors? So flow of donor registration in the MDRI is due to the several events which are held by MDRI on a regular basis. We hold camps. We hold camps in colleges and corporates only. The reason to limit it within colleges and corporates is that the education level should be high, so that we can reach out to the donor, and they can respond by an email if they are not accessible on a phone call or something. So we would like them to understand this whole process also. And MDRI donor registration drives, which are usually follow the awareness session. That is very important. All of them should go through the awareness session to know the importance of stem cell donation, because it is not like a blood donation that, it happens on the same day and it's done. The donor is committing that he will come forward on some later date. So awareness is very important. And of course, we hold fundraising drives because we don't have a government support. So we look for fund from philanthropic donors, and whoever want to help us raise the registry. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is some pictures which I've shared how the awareness session takes place. The awareness session is very informal. On an office, we take it to the floor where I stand just in the middle of the crowd and start talking, and it becomes very interactive and very interesting. I think this is the best way to approach all the donors, and we give them some time to decide and then come on a later date for the registration process. The registration process is a very simple process. As you can see on the right, we take a saliva sample, and we used to take blood samples also. So that's the bottom image shows students registering themselves with a band-aid on their arm. And last image is again a swab collection. We have huge crowds in colleges where they stand in huge serpentine lines to register themselves as donors. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this event was organized by Tata's with the government of Nagpur. And we had a huge, with Nagpur Medical College, the government medical college. We had Mr. Gadkari and Girish Mahajan coming forward to do the ribbon cutting, because in Nagpur we had a lot of patients of leukemia and sickle cell anemia, which is again a blood disorder which can be completely cured by a stem cell transplant. So this was like a community-based camp we had organized, and most of the donors who registered with us were the medical students from the colleges. So they had a rally. We had a talk by Mr. Gadkari himself, who encouraged people to come forward and register themselves. Next slide, please. Yeah, some statistics about bone marrow registries, stem cell registries around the world. As of today's date, there are 3.9 crore donors registered all over the world. Okay, and few prominent countries which I can show you right now is France, 3.5 lakhs. The Chinese, of course, a highly populated country, about 9.9 lakhs. The National Marrow Donor Program, that's the largest registry in the world. It's the US based, and they have about close to 90 lakhs. 90 lakhs. And German registry, of course, small country, but huge registry, 74 lakhs. And Anthony Nolan Trust, about 4 to 5 lakhs. And of course, as you can see, the dark blue bubble, our Indian registry, we have 50,000 donors. We are far behind compared to all the other registries. Interesting fact about the German registry is that they had a protocol that the day any individual in Germany touches the age of 18 years, the first thing he'll have to do is a compulsory registration as a stem cell donor. He can back out if he wants, but registration is compulsory. So that's how they got the 74 lakh donors so soon. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is our, if anybody wants to help us with funds, the registry can grow. This is our contact details. You all can, the listeners can contact Vishwa Talks if they want to more details about this slide. Of course, every financial donor will be given an ATG certificate, which will help them in their income tax protocols. And the support, we cannot function as a single entity. We always have support from so many people. As an NGO, we had support from so many different organizations for the IT purpose, for the funding, for the premises. The Ratan Tata Trust funded the whole project. Atos Intel provided the software free of cost with the support, and they're still helping us out. SL Raja Hospital is our head office, where we have the space free of cost, where I'm a physician also over here. I work as a doctor at SL Raja Hospital. And Excite Industries, Excite Batteries, who have funded the project. Tata Memorial Hospital, which is where we do all our transplants when a matching donor is found. The Raja family and the Z Network. Z Network helped us with all the propaganda and advertising and making posters and all. Next slide, please. So these are our numbers, and this is where you can contact us if, say, God forbid, there is a patient in the family and you're looking for a matching donor. This is where you can reach out to us. Everything will be done free of cost, and we can help you find a matching donor for a patient. And always I can leave you with this slogan: you carry the cure for someone's cancer. All of us are carrying the cure for someone's cancer in our magical cells called stem cells. It will be ideal to share it. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Praveen. I'd like to call upon our founder, Mrs. Shravani Mulapati, to continue the session. Good morning, ma'am.
Namaste, good morning. I'd like to express my gratitude to Dr. Praveen Clement for taking your time to share about this. All of us are educated, yet, I had so many people who passed away with cancer in our family, and I was not even aware of this. This kind of awareness building is much needed, and it was very kind of you to come forward to share it with our Vishwa Talk participants.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the participants who have taken time to be here. We would like each of you to share about stem cell donations and the ease with which it can be done in all your communities. Vishwa will be sharing the required information to each of you. Our request, our prayer to you is, please spread this awareness. While we are having our conversations, I would like to say, before we go to our question and answer sessions, I would now like to request the audience to take 30 seconds to answer a poll for us. The purpose of the poll is to help us understand you a little better so that we can better curate the topics that we bring to you. You can also let us know in the chat box how you found out about Vishwa Talks. If you are a Vishwa Talks subscriber, heard about it through friends and family, or found out about the event on social media, please let us know. I've also noticed that a lot of our Vishwa Talks participants want to come for the Vishwa Talks, want to be intimated about the Vishwa Talks, but have not registered into the subscriber button. We request you to subscribe because in today's social platform, it is with so many rules and regulations and privacy norms, it is not easy to send WhatsApp messages or place ads to spread awareness. So our special request is, we want you to press the subscribe to Vishwa Talks button, choose whichever areas you're interested in. Also to share it with your friends and family so that such awareness is spread among your friends and family, which can actually make a difference somewhere to someone.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the question and answer session. When was this stem cell donation discovered that it could help?
Yeah. To answer your question, initially this was known as bone marrow transplant. And it was being done since the 1960s in abroad, US and UK. It came to India in 1983, where you might have heard of one of the best doctors, Dr. Suresh Advani, who did the first bone marrow transplant at Tata Memorial Hospital. And since then, it has been progressing. In about 1997, we started this non-invasive way of donating stem cells, where it is just a needle procedure, just like a blood donation. So to answer your question, 1997, we started actually donating stem cells just through the needle procedure.
Okay. Then you were talking about Aryan race and all. There is so much happening in the social media that India doesn't have Aryan race. And then you're talking about the Aryan race and that Germans and we are, our races are close to each other. So I was a little confused with so much of conversation happening across.
Yes, there is a link probably about 6 centuries, if you go back. There is a link between the Germans and the Indians, just going by the race point of view, the Aryan race. Because through our genetic study, we have found out that because the DNA, there are some characters which will decide, which will tell us that, what kind of race this person belongs, although he might have no idea where he's originating from. So we did find this link between the German registry and the Indians, the German population and the Indian population, that there is a link in certain points of the DNA, not the whole DNA, in certain points, because as the centuries go by, there is a dilution of the DNA, because of intercaste, marriages and migration. So that's how we had to date back many centuries to find out the answer. Of course, we don't have a complete answer to this because we don't want to get too much into the racial background of anyone, because we are trying to get out of racism. Actually, probably this is the only place where we tend to study the race of the donor, and that's why our study point of view is very limited, and we keep it low.
Are there any studies or books with respect to race and genes?
And nothing that I know of as of now, not from the medical point of view, but there is one book, I forgot the name. I don't remember the name, but I can share it later, by a UK author who has done a study of voluntary donors, blood donors, stem cell donors, and organ donors, with the permission from them that can I do a racial profiling of your blood, and with a few family members also, to date back to see if they are related with the patient. And they came with some conclusive evidence that, when a match is found, somewhere down the centuries, they might be related. So that's the thing. I'll let you know the name of the book. It is not a medical book. It's more of an informative documentary.
There is one question from Ms. Sabita. Are there any precautions to be followed by the donor during the 5-day stimulation period?
Yeah. So the injection given to the donor is a growth factor. Okay. It's not a growth hormone. Okay. Growth factor means it's just a stimulant. It's a very body friendly injection. And it is only going to stimulate your bone marrow for a certain time, say about 10 to 12 hours. So it is going to, increase your stem cells, overflow it into your blood, and then the effect is gone. So it has a very short life. So we have to give it every day. So that is one thing. Precaution wise, the donor will not have to do anything special. Okay. He continues with his work and all. That's why the donor need not come to the hospital also or the blood bank to take the injection. I go to the donor's home and give it to him at his home, sit with him, have a cup of tea, and then the donor goes to his work also. So no special care or diet or anything. Only thing, he should not do any special sports activities like huge adventure activities during that time, because he should not get injured during those protocol, because those 5 days are very delicate period for the patient, because he is a match. And if something happens to the donor on the 3rd day or something, because simultaneously we have started conditioning the patient, simultaneously we have started destroying the patient's bone marrow also in those 5 days. So donor and the patient are being prepared simultaneously, so that day 0, donor donates, patient is at 0 cells, and the infusion takes place. Otherwise, no special care for the donor as such.
There's one question from Ms. Uma. Are there camps being held in, I'm adding to it, in Hyderabad or Bangalore, where we can ask people to donate?
Yeah. So MDRI as a registry is functional only in Mumbai. Okay. But we are connected with other registries around India. And there are 2-3 more registries in India. Usually the South is managed, as you said, Bangalore and Hyderabad is managed by 2 other registries. One is a very well-known registry called Datri, and the other well-known one is DKMS BMST. Okay, that is in Bangalore. Datri is in Chennai, and DKMS BMST is in Bangalore. So they have
Hyderabad?
their website. Yeah.
Hyderabad?
Hyderabad, there is no registry as such. But they can
possibility that Vishwa can coordinate with y'all or anybody to start a registry, or to collaborate with the hospital to start a registry?
Yeah, so the DKMS registry in Bangalore and Datri, of course, in Chennai, they hold online sessions for the awareness session. And they send the swab kit to the donor's home. So they just take a swab and put it in an envelope and post it. It's very simple. They don't have to do much. We have just started swab, so we are not doing the postal part yet. That's why we do live camps, and that also only in Mumbai. We are planning to expand in other parts of the country, but since there are already registries in the South, we don't venture there.
Because you said there are only 50,000 donors as of now in India.
Yes, yeah,
and we can really support you in building that up to at least 1 lakh or so.
Yeah, there is one catch to this also. This whole project is kind of a cost involved project. Each donor we register costs 5,000 rupees. So if you can imagine, if you go to a college, there is definitely 100 donor registration takes place. So in one shot, 5 lakhs. You have to be ready with it. This is the best.
Collaborate with you. For Andhra and Telangana, if you want to do any collaboration, Vishwa is ready to collaborate with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Definitely.
Another question out here from Miss. I think there's a lot of thank you sessions out here. From Mr.
No, that's nice.
Many myths are broke down today. Please elaborate on the change on blood group in the receiver mentioned in the presentation.
All right. Yeah. So blood group wise, patient and donor might have different blood groups. We just have to know which blood groups they are. And what happens is our blood group is formed in our bone marrow. So what happens when the donor donates? He is of, say, O group, and we have a stem cell product of O group. The patient is, say, something out of this AB blood group. What happens is we destroy the patient's bone marrow completely, to such an extent that there is nothing left behind in his bone marrow. The faulty cells, but at the same time we destroy his good cells also. But we take care of it. He's kept in a special isolated chamber where he's taken good care. So what has happened is the patient's blood group is completely destroyed. He does not have anything left of his primary blood group. Now the donor cells is having good blood group system in his stem cells. That when it goes to the patient, it is going to replace all his bone marrow with the patient's donor's cells. So finally, what will happen? Since the primary blood group has been destroyed, the patient will have to develop the donor's blood group only. So that is how the blood group of the patient changes to the donor's blood group.
You said there were around 18,000 donations that have taken place till now.
18,000. 18,000. No,
yes.
No. 18. Only 18.
Only 18 out of the 50,000 who've registered.
Yes. Yeah. See, that is the probability of finding a match. That is the probability. Of course, we have bigger registries. Datri in the south has a bigger registry. They have about 5 lakh donors where they have facilitated 400 transplants.
They've done 400 transplants.
Yeah. So this is the statistics. More the registry pool, bigger the transplants that can take place.
And how many out of these 18? How many were successful?
All of them.
All of them. And in Datri?
Yeah. They have not shared the data, but definitely I can vouch at least 80 to 90% have been successful because their number is larger. Yeah. Because what happens is a transplant is a very delicate procedure to be handled by many people at the same time, and the donor is always at a threat of a rejection. The patient. What has been given to him, suddenly his immune system will start developing and throw out whatever has been given. It's called graft versus host disease. So that is something which we have to take care all the time for the next 2 years after the transplant for the patient. It's not dependent on the doctor, but it is dependent on the patient's immunity, which is trying to develop as soon as possible. It's like weird. So that is the only reason where a transplant might fail.
Yeah. Now, I think this is a question you've already answered, but I'll repeat one. Mr. Sai Kiran has requested. What is the difference between bone marrow donation in past days and now?
Yeah, in past days, bone marrow donation was the only option, first of all. Now, this peripheral, PBSC, we call it, peripheral blood stem cell collection. Now we can do it through the vein, where it is as simple as a blood donation. And now we don't call it even bone marrow donation because it's a scary term to even say it. So very orthodox procedure. Of course, very few cases we still do a bone marrow transplant where like in the case of thalassemia and the donor is the sibling. The best option is a bone marrow donation. So we still opt for a bone marrow donation from the sibling, of course, with consent taken from the parents. But if you want to know the difference between the 30-year-old bone marrow and now, the needles are smaller, the anesthesia is shorter, and the patient is taken as an outdoor patient. They need not be admitted in the hospital. After the procedure is over, they can be sent home. Previous bone marrow donations, the patient was admitted. The donor is actually a patient, and he is admitted for 2 days in the hospital, just for observation, of course. But now it is an outdoor procedure.
Yes, there's some more questions. I'll take them after the session at 12. I'll just give a little introduction about what is Vishwa. I'd like to share a little bit about us. It's an online platform for everyday change makers like Dr. Praveen. And it's a crowdfunding and a crowdsourcing platform that is aimed at helping anyone find the support they need in their efforts to fulfill dreams for themselves and for others, and in the process make our world a better place. Vishwa Talks, we have launched 2 new segments, one for youth and one for junior. We would like schools to register with us. I remember my son was studying in Rishi Valley, and eminent people would come and talk to them at a regular basis. This would expose them to the world around them. And we would like to make this available to all the schools across the country, because it's going to be online and it's going to be just a 1 hour session where eminent people will be talking. So that is one thing. Please spread the word. Thirdly, we also have something called Vishwa materials, where this Ugadi, that is the coming New Year's, the Indian New Year's, we will be taking donations of materials, which will be given to the underprivileged. It has been a very successful event when we did it in Diwali. Mostly for all our festivals in India, we clean up our homes, and the home is completely, when you clean it up, there's so many things we find which we don't use, but please feel free to share it with those people who need them. And this Ugadi, please do some stem cell donations also. Yeah. Then we do have some successful fundraisings that have taken place. That one principal from a school in the interiors of Telangana had requested a tricycle for his student, Srujana. She had cerebral palsy and she was walking 11 kilometers to school. And thanks to some anonymous donors, this was taken care of. And we wish that each of you spread about Vishwa and the fundraisers that are happening out here. Like, for example, Kanashray is a foundation in Rajmundry, Hyderabad. Most of us have someone in our extended family or friends who have children who have autism or who are disabled. And the parents, their lifelong goes into taking care of this child. Whereas Kanashraya Foundation has come out with a school which takes care of these students. So we would like you all to share it with people, or, where the teachers out there can be, they require around 10,000 rupees per month. And I think it's around 5 to 6 teachers. If these teachers and the staff can be, if somebody is willing to do a monthly donation of 10,000, that would be helpful. Also, a 6,000 rupees donation for the food per day on a monthly basis. If you can get 30 donors, Kanashraya could be taken care of. Similarly, Bal Vikas Education Society is for disabled children in Hyderabad. Their survey shows 2 out of every 100 children in India suffer from some form of mental disability. So for 14 years, Bal Vikas Education Society has been helping children with intellectual disabilities by providing them education, and so that they can be socially integrated and functional individuals who can stand on their own feet. So please do the similar donation to them also. Similarly, there is donation to nutritious food for children living with HIV/AIDS. There are around 2,300 children who have HIV, and most of these children have got it when they were born, and they are forced into child labor. They have very little nutrition. And all it takes is 1,600 to 1,800 rupees a package of food can help them sustain for an entire month. So anybody who's willing to do it, if we can get 100 people to donate around 1,800 monthly for a year, we can really take care of these children. Similarly, there is an upcoming talk on ecology and environment. The speakers are Dr. Monica Malik, veterinary doctor, from Kimaya Veterinary Clinic, Mr. Vivek Jayal, animal rescuer and trainer. The topic is how to sensitize people towards animals and steps one should take before keeping a pet. Ours is a civilization which has always respected animals and our environment around. But slowly, with westernization, we believe these are superstitions and we neglect the animals, or we get, you find a snake and you want to kill it. You find a dog and you want to throw it out. So we have this upcoming talk and we request you all to register for it. The date and time is 25th February 2022, 11 a.m. And please also subscribe to our Vishwa Talks. With this, I conclude the talk. Thank you so much to each of the participants for being here and trusting us to come out with some good talks for you. And after this, you all can continue your question and answers. Anybody has, please raise your hand. We can ask
There's
you.
a question. There's a question from Niharika Rao. How
Yeah.
can we test ourselves for cancer prevention, especially if there is a strong family history?
Yeah. So if there is a strong family tendency, that means that through the generations, there has always been a cancer in the family. So although there is no hardcore evidence that cancer is absolutely familiar, yes, there are some cancers which is familiar, but depending on what type of cancer or which organ of the body has been affected with that type of cancer, it would be advisable that the younger generation gets themselves screened for that particular organ through a specialized MD physician. Say in my case, treating blood cancers, my suggestion is that get a CBC done on a regular basis. Say if you're in the age group of say 25 to 30, a CBC once a year is fair enough. And get the report analyzed by a specialist rather than a regular doctor to know if there is anything, any value in the blood parameters out of the normal. So we can comment on that and tell you to proceed for further investigations. 99% of the time it is just a normal variation, but if there is something, we can point it out and let you know. So if there is a strong familial indication, because that's a very broad field, because cancers are there in all parts of our body. So depending on what type of cancer, we can guide you what has to be done.
One question from G. Narahari Datta. What
Yes.
will be the cost involved in bone marrow transplantation?
Yes, so the cost currently bone marrow transplant is a highly specialized procedure and done in very few hospitals all over the country. Although all these procedures are not specific for the doctor or the hospital, the procedure itself is a costly affair. It can range from anywhere between 15 lakhs to almost 80 lakhs, depending on which hospital is doing the transplant. But at the same time, there are organizations which can fund, like yours, fund the project with a crowdfunding, where we have approached a certain hospital coming from Tata Memorial Hospital. There are many organizations just outside the hospital premises where they help in crowdfunding, or whatever funds they have, they help them out. Yes, government hospitals do it at a much lesser cost. So probably, but to answer your question, still 15 to 20 lakhs would be a cost to do a bone marrow transplant, minimum.
So the person who has cancer should be prepared with that kind of amount?
Not always. If they are a little proactive and approach organizations, it might be done free of cost also. And
does insurance cover this?
No.
Insurance doesn't cover this?
No, not in this. At least a bone marrow transplant doesn't. But yes, regular malignancies which have been operated. I'm going to the surgical side now, where there was a tumor, say like a breast tumor or something, and the operation was done, chemotherapy was given. Yeah, that is covered.
So when you do bone marrow transplantation, is it in parallel to chemotherapy, or is it?
Yes and no. The thing is, in bone marrow transplant, chemotherapy is required before the transplant. Okay, but at the same time, bone marrow transplant per se cannot be done. It would require chemotherapy.
One question from Ms. Niharika Rao. How can we register to donate?
Yeah, so depends on your location, Ms. Niharika. If you're in Mumbai, just call us. We'll arrange for a collection to be done. As I said, if you're in the south, there is Datri, there is DKMS. They would send the swab kit to your address. If you're in the north, there is this organization called Gene Bandhu in Delhi. Gene Bandhu, okay, genetic gene, Gene, Bandhu, friend, okay, Gene Bandhu, who can organize the same thing for you. So there is some registry north, west, and south. So to take care of the locations.
What would be the process to start a registry in Hyderabad?
To start a registry, you'll have to be associated with the hospital first to get the ball rolling. At least you should be in a premises which is recognized, because starting as an NGO with registering donors, many donors will not come forward. But if you're associated with a cancer hospital, maybe NIMS,
Basavatarakam hospital.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, as long as you're associated with the hospital, the trust of the crowd is more, and you will have all the logistics taken care by the hospital. Because if there is a transplant to be, taken up, it can be done there itself. The donors' investigations, the transplant, the patient's follow-up, all that can be done in the same hospital.
But how does Basavatarakam become a register for this, to become a registry?
The blood bank has to get involved in this.
Which one?
The hospital will have a blood bank.
No, but how do they become a registry? What is the process for Basavatarakam to become a registry?
Okay, so we had to register with the Charity Commissioner of India, and there is Charity Commissioner is enough to form a registry. And
that is all that is required?
Yes, yeah, and you will have to enroll with the WMDA that you're forming a registry.
Okay.
World Marrow Donor Association.
Can Basavatarakam speak with your organization to follow the right processes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Another question.
Yeah.
By Ms. Uma, are we survivors eligible to donate stem cells?
Are we survivors? Ms. Uma, you are a cancer survivor, is it? I'm hoping that your sentence says that. If you have been treated for cancer, I'm sorry, you cannot be a donor, irrespective of whatever cancer you've been treated. I'm happy for you that you're a survivor now. So, but as a policy, as I said, you have to pass something called a fitness for donation. If you had cancer at one point, you cannot be a donor.
You have also said
very, very disappointing for me, because I have donated my body, doctor. I donated my body already.
How nice. How nice.
He pulled the plug for me. The main club, I want to pull it off at 80. I'm 78 now, going to be 79. So having donating the body, I mean, then they can't use anything. They will not use.
No, yeah, because we have a certain policy, because the donor, the idea behind not taking you as a donor is the genetic pattern which you have has a tendency to have malignancy. So you are completely cured. But when it goes to a patient who has a very, very low immunity or almost zero immunity, it will trigger a cancer in him. So that is the reason.
Then is there any point in my donating the body then? Does it make any sense?
No, body donation is fine. Body donation is fine because they are organs. So they don't have that much of a tendency, and it is much more life-saving for a recipient for organ donation. So
I didn't have so far any secondaries, 24 years still going strong. So I just want
awesome.
to ask.
That's very nice to know. That's very nice.
Lovely to hear so many talks from morning, I mean, it has been like overlapping. I want 3 systems. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You said that only 25 to 50 years can donate?
18 to 50.
After 50, you cannot donate?
The thing is, no, you can donate. The registration cutoff is 50.
Okay. So I would like
you will be registered with us till the age of 65.
Okay.
The thing is, as you said, there is a cost involved in registering a donor.
Okay.
So we keep a 15 years buffer from the cutoff till the day he donates.
So how do we, is there a link where we can request for to donate?
To register, you mean?
Yeah.
No, we don't have a link as such, because, what we found that just clicking on the link, the donor will give a swab and everything. But what happens is the donor is not counseled. So he does not have the full information before he gets onto the database. So what we do is we do a one-on-one counseling always with whichever donor wants to register with us. He'll have to undergo the one-on-one physical counseling. Then only they will register. So we have not kept an online protocol to register donors.
One question from Ms. Sabita. Can we
Yes.
do transplant even if there is no 100% match, and what is the success rate?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. We always look for a 100% match to do a transplant. But if, say, there are no matches or no 100% matches, we can explore the possibility of a 9/10 match, which is a 90% match or a 95% match. We can look into it, but there are risks involved in it. We have to weigh the pros and cons. Seeing the patient's condition, if there is no other hope of survival, we can go for a mismatched transplant, we call it. 9/10, we call it. Okay. Yes, we can do it. Then, risky, but can be done.
Another question from Ms. Niharika. Yeah. Bone marrow donation should be done only by family members, or?
Yeah, the first option for a patient is always a family member. Okay, and there is a lot of misunderstanding among the family members, saying that only family member can donate and no one else can donate. It's not true. There are random matches in registries who will be a perfect match. But at the same time, we as doctors, whenever we get a patient, we always ask the family that, is there a sibling? Not all family members, sibling. We are looking at siblings, own brother or sister. Okay, and that also there is only a 25% chance that the sibling will match. Okay, so we look at that. If there are no siblings, we really don't explore the other family members because we know that there won't be a match. Then we look forward to registries where there might be voluntary donors registered with us. So not all family members, we should call it siblings, and we should screen them. Yes, definitely. If a match is found within a week, we do the transplant also. There is no waiting over there.
It's so sad that, we've lost some very close family members and we were not even aware of this, though we could have afforded it.
Yeah, that's the lack of awareness in our country, actually. We find it difficult. Of course, if there is an option, I'm hoping that the physician who is doing the transplant would have given that option, but you never know.
It's also very sad that we have such a huge population, but our registries are so small.
Yeah. That is one point. Now India, we just hit number one, highest populated country in the world, and we beat China also. And but sadly, we have a very small registry. It's because of the cost involved in it. I see that Indians are very emotional people, and all are like really willing to come forward and save lives. But there is a cost involved to it, to register a donor also. That's why we don't have huge viral messages going on, please register, because we won't be able to afford the testing. That's why we keep it as much as funds are there, we can do the registrations. That's how it is.
Thank you so much. This was a very enlightening talk. And thank you to all the participants for taking time to spread this awareness.
Yes, I really appreciate all the people who have joined us today on a Saturday morning, actually. Thank you so much for being here and, participating, asking questions, and, getting rid of all the myths, I hope. If at all there are any more questions, you can always leave a message with Trishant on the site. I'm not sure how it goes, but I'll be happy to answer all of them.
I will address all the questions in chat and also in mails, so you can directly just state your questions in the chat itself, and I'll respond by mail. Lastly, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. Please take a moment to subscribe to Vishwa Talks. Please join our Instagram, Facebook channels, LinkedIn channels. Also, if you want more details, you could visit www.mdrindia.org. Also, you can write mails to them on info@mdrindia.org. Thank you so much for attending the session. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Is there a breakout room?
Yes, we're just starting it now. Here you go.